All right, next one, let's talk about land. So we've already kind of covered a little bit about, some elements if you've already owned it or not. But, if you are going out looking for land, I generally tell you just to start with a real estate agent. If you've got connections and stuff, that's fantastic. Approaching neighbors, any way you can do it, doesn't matter. We can certainly finance your land into your project, as we've already talked about. Ben has as well. But let's talk about the land specifically. Ben, do you have any restrictions on land, whether acreage size, location, zoning, anything like that?
Yeah, so this is obvious to me, but it's not probably to customers because they're not maybe as familiar with Greenstone, but it cannot be within the city limits. If it's within a township, or not township, within a village, the populace cannot exceed 2,000 people. So those are really our two biggest limitations. Outside of that, as long as you're in the rural countryside, there's really no acreage limitation. But I will say, and I'm going to get a little bit wordy here, John, so forgive me, but we have 3 customer segments at Greenstone. The ones I deal primarily with are part-time farmers and rural resident customers. The difference between the two is part-time farmers own 10 acres or more, or they generate $500 of agricultural income or more annually. That wouldn't necessarily have to be reported, just communicated. So if you're in the part-time farm category, you're not limited to the maximum structure that you can build. Whereas if you're a rural resident, we have to follow our it's $205 a square foot is the maximum you can build for as a rural resident customer, or the appraised value would need to be less than $392,000. So that's really the biggest stipulation we have when it comes to those two. But if you're a part-time farmer, you could be on 2 acres, but you generate $500 ag income. You can build that home for as large as you want.
Okay.
Hopefully I answered that accurately.
Yeah, I'm in the banking world, and even for me, my head kind of went like this.
Yeah, I know.
So what I would tell you guys, if you guys are thinking that Ben's the right fit for you, I would just spend time with him and make sure that you identify, give him your information. It's kind of like qualifying for the loan. Give him your information, let him run through and say yay or nay, so that you can know right up front kind of what it looks like. So jumping down to myself, I'm probably towards the opposite end of the spectrum. So I'm good with, lots in the city, on the lakes. We can certainly do rural. I can go up to larger acreage, 40, 50, 60 acres. Once we start getting into the actual farms, like if you're going to try to build on a working farm, that's where we start moving you to Ben, because that's their element. So if you've got a beautiful piece of rural property sitting on 40 acres, that's just, maybe you're going to hunt out back or whatever, we can do that. So I don't really have a minimum or a maximum. It's just kind of using some guidelines of where we were at on our terms. Okay. We kind of categorize them between, if you need to buy the land while you're doing construction, we kind of treat that like a purchase. And if you own the land already, we kind of treat it like refinance. So for us, we look at it as 2 separate guidelines. Matter of fact, why don't we just talk about that for a second, Ben? So when we do our construction loans, if somebody already owns their land,